Hi, I'm Samuel Picou.
Welcome to the Speak Life podcast. We have in studio today Samuel Picou. And I want to read off his bio because it's very impressive. He was first discovered on season 5 of NBC's The Voice. Samuel is a husband, worship leader, pastor, rapper, singer, songwriter, and business owner. And I just found out he's a watch collector as well. Samuel focuses on inspiring others using a positive message. He is a voice for anti-bullying as well as through his book, Beyond the Cover, which goes through his condition with alopecia, in which he was diagnosed at a very young age. Make sure to follow Samuel on Instagram and keep an eye out for his future podcast features and music releases on all streaming platforms. Let's welcome Samuel Picou.
What's going on? Great to see you.
Great to see you in studio.
Yes, sir.
So let's kind of get into your story and take us through what brings you here today and where God has brought you from.
Yeah, so really, I grew up out in, I was actually born in Louisiana. Not a lot of people know about that, but I was born in Louisiana, right near Baton Rouge. Got the great food out there. Soul food was like crazy, right?
Yes.
But but I was, just really young when I was out there. My dad and mom, they were both in full-time ministry, both pastors. They were children's pastors and mission pastors, actually. And so, me, my little brother, and my sister, we were raised in Louisiana, moved to Texas. And then from Texas, because of my dad, he left the full-time ministry, went right into business. So we were moving quite a lot. And then from Texas, we moved to California.
That's a big change.
Very big change, weather, everything, right? But we went straight to California, and I went right into a different school, different, place. And, for me, since I was very young, I've had alopecia. It's an autoimmune disorder where your hair follicles are attacked by your immune system. And a very small percentage of people get this, and a lot of doctors don't even know why it happens. And so when it happened to me, there's a lot of questions. I was bullied a lot in school, and then the moving around a lot didn't help at all.
Because you're always a new kid?
You're always a new kid. You got to be introduced to the whole class. And, the teachers thought it would be a good idea to just tell everybody off the back, hey, this guy has alopecia. So if you have any questions, you can bring them up to him. But they would always try and help me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would get in a lot of fights at school, man. And I would always say I'm defending myself. I was just a troubled kid. And, I'd be brought in the principal's office, all this kind of stuff. But we moved in that period from probably about to elementary school, to middle school, to high school, probably about 18 times. A lot of times. And my mom would always say it was because a lot of the relationships my dad had, they didn't go too well. When I was young, we were in the church. My dad was a pastor. And seeing my dad be a pastor is the most inspiring thing to me ever. And even that my mom and my dad had like a really great relationship. I mean, we'd go on mission trips, with my whole family. And so that was like really inspiring to me, seeing my dad in that level of leadership. And from there, I didn't know that I was called to be a pastor, but I knew that it was always around me, the pastoral leadership, whether it was in the home or whether it was in the church or on the mission field. But either way, I saw the power of God at a young age. And growing up, in California, there's not a lot of that around.
No, there isn't. Unfortunately not.
It's usually a lot more in the Bible Belt area.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
But it was great, being in a family that knew God.
Yes.
And that had some foundational values that were biblical. That was very helpful, So I think I was, very blessed growing up, even though I had to deal with alopecia and the questions and the looks and the bullying and the stares and all those things. I still had a pretty strong biblical foundation that I was growing up out of. But I would definitely say, growing up in California, getting older, I really began to focus on, I was like, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
What am I here for? I grew up in church. I knew it was good to go to church. I knew it was good to lift my hands in worship. I knew I was singing on the worship team. I knew it was good to sing and to do things for God, but I didn't know that it was godly.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was righteous. I didn't know that it was a lifestyle that I needed to commit to. And I think it's funny because I know that you'd shared that you'd grown up in church before. We were talking before.
Yeah.
It's funny because you're around everyone making the commitment, but sometimes it's like you're not personally making that commitment every day.
So true.
And a lot of times to make a commitment, it takes a sacrifice.
100%.
And I didn't have nothing to sacrifice but my little room with like my game system and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was like, and I didn't have much that I could sacrifice. If I could sacrifice the homework, I would have done that.
Yeah,
right?
there you go. We all would have. Yeah.
We all would have sacrificed. But the biggest thing I think for me that I had to sacrifice was how I seen the condition that I had since I was young. And just understanding, my mom would tell me all the time, God has a plan for you.
Yeah.
God has a plan for you. This isn't a part of God's doing. You didn't receive this from God. What you have to understand is that God's going to use it.
But that's a huge understanding to get, because the first thing people will do is blame God or accuse God.
For sure.
So for you, having that understanding from an early age, that sets you up from a much different trajectory than other people that would go through the condition.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I would definitely say, growing up in a Christian household was very helpful for me, regardless of the moving, regardless of the condition, because I had a great support system. My brother and sister are super supportive. My brother's so funny. He'd try and fight everybody that would try and come against me and fight me. But, I think I was very blessed. And I would lose that perspective if I focused on what I didn't have.
Yeah.
And so at very young, I just began to really trust God. And I didn't trust him yet with my whole life, but I trusted him in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I think what was important about that is once I got into the teenage years, I was around 13, 14. My dad seen that I was musical. And my dad actually, just to add some backstory, my dad actually traveled and did Christian rap.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a time when he actually exchanged mixtapes, he told me, with Toby Mac on a flight.
Wow, that's
which
interesting.
is pretty cool.
So that would have been back when it was DC Talk.
Back when it was that's exactly when.
Yeah.
His band was called Full Effect.
Okay.
So it was him and his buddy in ministry, and they would just travel. They went to Europe and all these different places. He was the rapper in the band.
Wow.
So my dad would always rap. So I remember back in my mom and dad's Land Rover, just in the back with the little headset plug in, and I had his little tape, and it was just me in the back silent. Yeah. And my parents probably thought I was like the best behaved kid, but I just loved his music. So I was always silent, and my brother and sister are fighting in the front. I'm just rapping his lines,
cool. That's
learning.
Cool.
And so I was always inspired.
So you had that generational background in ministry and in music coming from your dad.
Oh, for sure.
And so when did you really start expressing yourself in music, you know, doing it for yourself?
I remember there was a talent show, and I write about it in my book, but it was one of the first moments that I wanted to show everyone what I could do. And I was always counted out, right, because of the alopecia stuff. So I never really did that. That was big for me. Like, I was not good at sports. I was horrible at sports. So when I did music, it was like, this is what I love to do. And so I got on stage and I did one of my dad's raps.
Okay.
It actually went something like this. He said this. He said, "Shine, shine, shine, drop a rhyme. Time after time and line after line. I'm speaking my mind to the world at large. I make a weak man strong and a soft man hard. He's coming back quick, so you better get ready. Everything's gonna shake, so you better stay steady." So what he was saying was truth. And as he was saying that truth, it inspired me to go out and do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so he was very evangelistic. And I kind of, even looking back at it now, like, is a way of preaching.
Yes.
You know?
100%.
And now being a pastor is crazy, bro. God totally surprised me with this. But I got on that stage, I rapped, the crowd went crazy. It was like a crowd of kids and like some teachers and stuff, but it was so cool because those were the same kids that were like mocking me, making fun of me. But then they're right there, and because of Jesus and what he had done through my dad, and then what he's doing through me right there, and me just following what he was asking me, I felt like it was God asking me to go do that talent show.
Yeah.
I was able to get the gospel out to all these kids, and they were excited about it.
Wow.
So I was seeing like different routes that you could share the gospel already at I was like 13 at that age.
Wow.
It's crazy.
So then where did that take you in your musical journey, and how did you progress with that?
So from there, my dad just got inspired. I seen it. Like, he bought me a whole studio. It was like, man, thousands of dollars.
So he saw the talent.
Yes. And he started investing. We were very well off financially at that time. So we had like a house and everything in Rancho Cucamonga, actually, which was great. And so, he invested in me, and we spent hours. I remember hours, like late at night, trying to write raps. He was writing raps with me. And then we wrote a whole album together And we put that out, sold it, and used the money to go to Panama, Ecuador, Guatemala, and go and reach people with that music.
Fantastic.
Which was really cool. So I just seen a major investment from my dad, and he inspired me. When he did that, I was like, whoa, okay, cool. So this is our thing, you know?
That's awesome. And so from what time did you start really kind of pushing it out there? So you did these different things, going to South America and all of that.
Yeah.
So where did you kind of lead to getting onto The Voice?
Oh, yeah. Great question. Yeah. So right after, it's so funny because God knew what I needed to do before I did The Voice. And so he prepared me a lot on the mission field and getting me in front of people I'd never met before in my life, but knew that they were in a desperate situation.
Yeah.
And I'm just this kid from California with alopecia, something they probably wouldn't even know how to pronounce. And I'm there, and they're not seeing me any different.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I go to Guatemala, Panama, Ecuador with my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad. We all went together. We're on these buses. It's an organization, and God bless his family, but his name is Steve Goley. He had passed away actually just recently, about a year ago. Okay. But he would lead this organization with my dad. It's called Never the Same Missions. And so I went on this trip, and what the goal of the mission trip is you take all these different churches and different Christian schools, and you get some of the parents to take their teens to go on these trips. So it's a teen-centered trip.
Got it.
So it's really fun. And so
you get exposed to what's going on in those countries.
At a young age.
Wow.
And if you know anything about the missions, it's very hard to get teenagers and kids across the seas. So it was a big deal for us. But summertime, we all went over there. Me and my friends, we raised money with the music like I was mentioning, and we went straight into these places. We gave out food. We did a drama. I actually played the devil in the drama because of the bald head.
Yeah.
So I was the evil magician.
Oh my goodness.
So the kids painted me all black and red, and then it's a drama that's in another language that's teaching the story of Jesus called The Toy Maker and His Son. And so as that's happening, they're getting captivated, these kids, these family members, in their language. When it's done, of course, I'm gone because I was the devil, and Jesus is still there. He gives them an opportunity on the mic through a testimony to give their life to Jesus.
Wow.
So you're seeing all these people be saved, and I was like 15 or so, 14, around there. My little brother, my little sister on the mission field with me. I'm seeing my brother pray for people. Wow. I'm praying for someone, and their arm completely gets healed from being withered so she can cook for her family. I'm doing that with my grandmother. This is amazing, And I'm just seeing the power of God at such a young age. I don't quite yet probably really understand how awesome it is. Because I don't know desperation yet quite. Yeah. But I'm seeing that it's good. And I'm seeing it's powerful, and it's cool that I get to be a part of it, and I get to rap, right? I love rapping. But it was great because I got to do those songs on the mission field. People got to experience, and it was a funny story. My brother had long hair back then, and they were having him sign the Bible because they thought he was Jesus.
That is funny.
It was so funny. But they thought it was Justin Bieber too, because we were out there and he's like on the mic with me and stuff. So, man, just some funny, times. But looking back on it, that really prepared my heart because God showed me, hey, people are people.
Yes.
And people need me. And that's the biggest need that people have is God, is to know their purpose. And so I was there, and all I had to do was rap and say yes to God and go on this mission trip, which was great. It was super fun. But people got to know their purpose through that. Sign me up. I'm down, right? Yeah. But a lot of that boldness was developed there on that field for another field, and that was The Voice. And so I really believe after that, when I came back, man, I was on fire. But the problem was that I wasn't even really a part of a church.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't able to do anything with that fire.
Got it.
I just went on a trip. I came back and the fire started to diminish. The only place I knew where the fire was in my music. So what I did was through that studio, I started developing music. My mom started to really like it. My dad started to like the music, started to put it out, started to do music videos. I'm like, this is what I'm called to do. Next thing happens, my mom says, hey, why don't you try out for The Voice? I'm like, okay. I'm like almost 16 at this time. So we go in person to the Los Angeles Convention Center, stand in line for like 3 hours.
Thousands of people that show up.
Thousands of people, all kinds of people. People with pink hair, people with like random people dressed up like crazy, like people I'd never seen before. And we're all in line, and everyone's trying to be noticed. And I'm there, and I already know, like, I'm already set apart. But I knew because of God, and things I had done. But I'm there in line, I'm nervous. and I have to be there with my mom because I'm 15. We're waiting in line. We get to the very front, and everyone starts standing in front of a table, and there's 3 judges. They're all on their laptops. They look like they don't care.
Yeah.
They're just saying, okay, next person, let's go. We all line up. It's about 10 of us. All right, you sing. 30 seconds, a cappella, whatever you have. So they all start singing. I'm at the very end. And so it gets to me, and I start singing, and it sounds like this. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she precious, right? Less than 1 minute, oh. I thought that song was cool. And so I sang that, and they looked up from the laptops. They said, all right, everybody go but Sam. You stay.
Wow.
My mom was like, what? Like, she was like, no way. Next thing I know, it's me and those 3 judges in the room together. And they're like, listen, I need you to sign this right here. This is a confidentiality agreement, whatever. Your next step is another audition. And so they took me to SIR Studios, which was out in I think it's in Hollywood or something like that. And I go into the studio, place. It's owned by Universal. And there's all these different studio rooms. They start interviewing me about my story, similar to what's happening now. I'm 15, dude. Like, I've never done that kind of stuff before, So it was
interviewed
cool.
and
Dude, it was like a whole new experience for me. Like, I was like, what? So, but they start asking me questions about my life, and they get right to my alopecia story. So I start sharing that, and then they stay on that for a long time. And I started to learn, like, whoa, this sets me apart with God, but I have a purpose, but also there's a purpose for this here in the world at another level. And
there's
so,
a platform for it.
Dude, people loved hearing about it. So I felt really special, And especially with the music, it was cool. So I made it through SIR Studios audition. After that audition, it was another audition. But this one, have you ever been on the trams at Universal Studios?
Yes.
The little tour?
Yes.
You know when you're driving through the city?
Yeah.
That's where the other one was.
Okay.
And so you go there,
in the studio.
And it's in front of Mark Burnett, who does Survivor. He does the Bible series and stuff. He was there. They're awesome. They're all there, but it's kind of like more of a, it was an executive round, I guess. You have to be audition for. So I put together not only singing, but I did rapping. I did Michael Jackson, I Want You Back. Oh, baby, give me one more chance. That one. And then I did like a rap too. So just so they could see that side of me. And then I danced.
Wow, you
so
did
I went
everything.
through I went through the classes.
Wow.
It was fun. But I'm like, I'm gonna give it everything I got.
Yeah.
I know how to play guitar, piano as well. So I did that in some of the auditions too. But when I went that audition, it was very low light. You had a lot of the casting producers there and things like that. I didn't know any of them except for 1 or 2 through the process of the show. So when I'm there, they have some candles lit. It was very laid back, like rugs and only 2 studio lights. It didn't really feel like a studio. But they said, okay, go ahead and you can start singing. They're all smiling. They're excited because I had a story, and that was important to them, probably for the viewers, which is cool. So they had me sing, and they said, all right, thank you so much. And there was nothing. I was like, oh, snap. So I go outside. My mom's like, so what'd they say? I'm like, they didn't say anything. I'm like, oh, man, why did they do this to us? They have to tell us later.
Oh, my goodness.
You'll get an email. I'm like, oh, my gosh,
come
that's
on.
the worst.
No immediate feedback.
No immediate feedback, man. And we can't tell anybody because we signed the confidentiality. You can't put it on anything. So they had me clear my whole Instagram about stuff, everything. So I get home. I'm still making music. Month goes by, 2 months goes by. They give me a call. Hey, we want you at Universal Studios at one of our stages to do the blind auditions.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to have you come to a hotel, and we're going to shuttle you back and forth. There's going to be a wardrobe day. There's going to be interview day. There's going to be, they said, what was the other one? Vocal lessons. You're going to stay in a hotel with people from American Idol recently who were just on, and people who are just like yourself who need to go on this next series or whatever. I'm like, wow, let's go. So I literally moved out. I was a teen, so I had to do homeschooling at that point. So I literally had to transfer. I was in freshman year, and I transferred, and so I was doing my sophomore year on homeschool.
Wow.
So I had to say again goodbye to all my friends and say hello to this here. So not knowing it's a calling, bro, And sometimes with your calling, and this is just a pause moment, but there's people that can't go with you to where you're headed. 100%. And that's not their fault, and it's not your fault. it's your calling, and God needs to get you around certain people so you can start thinking differently, you know? And I didn't know where I was headed, but I really felt like I had to say goodbye to some things in order to get to the place I was going.
How big was it that your family really supported you in what you wanted to do?
Oh, bro, it was literally the best. Because they wanted me in sports so bad. They wanted me to be my little brother with the sports. Like, my brother was really good at sports. My sister, she was like, they're trying to get her into acting and stuff like that. But they just wanted to be supportive in whatever we were passionate about, you know? And I think at times, like, I was a little frustrated sometimes because their support meant everything in the world, but their support couldn't get me there.
Yeah.
It could only keep me stable, you know? Right. And so God does that. He puts those people in your life like your parents, you know, but they can't get you to where you need to go. You can't make them your God, you know? And I think I had been through a couple pieces to where I was like making my giftings my God, making my parents my God, you know? And when you do that, it's sad because they can really determine your character as far as like how you see yourself. And it can be to a, you know, sometimes a detrimental point of view, you know, especially like how we're going to get into it soon, but like the divorce and everything, you know, because I had made them my God, you know, I was not seeing my calling, and it was right in front of me the whole time, you know, and I was thinking like, oh, my calling is to just go and do what my dad did, or to go and do what my mom did, or to follow their footsteps, which could be partly true, but God wants something special for you, and you'll miss it if you think that it's all in a person, you know? So anyways, I found it really nice that, you know, my parents were very supportive and invested money and invested time, you know, to areas that I couldn't put either of those things into, you know? So, but yeah, just to continue with the story, you know, from the hotel we were staying in, I met people that I'd never met before in my life, but that were gifted like me, and none of them judged me because of how I looked. In fact, they said, you're probably gonna make it farther in the voice than me because of your story and because of how you looked. And I had all the hope in the world. I was excited. You know, fast forward 90 days of being in that hotel, I actually got the chance of being on the stage with CeeLo Green, Christina Aguilera, what's the other guy? Adam Levine, and Blake Shelton, right? The four.
Yeah, come on. Hey, what's wrong with the world, mama? Yo, people living like they ain't got no mamas. Yo, I think this whole world addicted to the drama. They only attract the things that be bringing the trauma.
It's so crazy how it happens so fast. I'm backstage, and I'm just hearing them speak. As every person's going up on stage, you're right there. They're loading you back up. Okay, it's your turn. They're gonna sing. They're gonna be done soon, and then it's your turn. So I was nervous, bro. But I'm praying. But I'm also on camera. They're filming this whole thing. So it's like, man, I gotta be bold right now. Like, what am I doing this for? To please people? Like, should I pray right now or should I not? And so I prayed, and I was like, God, I need your help here. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I trust you. And sure enough, they're like, okay, go. And they had like the headset and everything. Bro, I'm 15, bro. I'm so young. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. But I go out, and it's way smaller than I thought it was.
Okay.
And you just see, from the instant you walk out, there's a little bit of like ground. You look to the left, hundreds of people, like this big little like stadium. And so I try not to focus on the people. I just try to focus on where I was going because it was dark. And so I'm walking on the stage, and there's a whole live band that plays with you as well. None of it's a track, as far as I know. But the live band was there, and the lights are off, and the lights went down. I just hear, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. And it's Where's the Love by Black Eyed Peas. And so I start doing the rap. I start singing right after. I gave it my best, bro. I think I even hit my knees at some point when I was singing. Like, I was like, I'm gonna give it your all. I literally gave it my all, bro. I'm out there. And by the end of the song, no one turned around.
Oh, man.
Bro, I was like, is this a bad dream? Like, what is this? Like, this doesn't make sense. That was my first thought.
Wow.
And even as I was singing, towards the end of the song, I looked out in the crowd and I thought I seen someone laughing at me. And I was like, what? Like, what does it make? This has to be a bad dream. I just felt an attack, bro, immediately, like on my emotions, on the whole moment. I just wanted to go home. I wanted to give up. I was like, heck no, bro. Like, this is done. So that happened. Song ends, lights come up, and the crowd starts like, you know, clapping and stuff, because that's what the sign says. And then all the judges turn. So I see them all right there. They're in front of me, but I can't get to them. and there wasn't a connection. And so they said, man, I thought you were two people. I thought you were two. I liked the singer, but I didn't know about the rapper. It's like, man, I should have turned around, Blake Shelton. And I was like, man, I was just listening because I didn't know if I was like allowed to speak or what it was,
Right.
And so then Christina Aguilera said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 15 or I'm 16. And she said, man, you're 16. Everybody's like, what? Like they thought that was cool. So I was like, I was happy at that point. I was like, okay, cool. I did make it this far, And then they said, yeah, you're 16. You just really got to focus on your craft. You have a lot of time, focus on your craft and you're going to be in a great position. And that's what I asked them. I said, how do I get from where I'm at to where you are? And back then I seen it as a position of influence, but I didn't know I could have influence where I was right there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times for anyone's listening, we can think that influence comes from a position, but don't work yourself to the point of death for a position when the true influence comes from the Lord, and it comes from where you are now and you being thankful now and influencing your family, influencing those around you, being an influence in your church. Even if you don't have the position or title of pastor, anyone who's listening, bro, like they can still be a pastor right there.
Absolutely.
Just care for people.
Yeah.
Show them God's love. Don't hold back because you want something that's evil. Release God's love that's inside of you. You're gonna have God's love in that position anyway.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest part for me in that moment was like, man, out of body experience. I didn't get chosen. I got rejected. I'd been rejected my whole life. I didn't think it was because of alopecia. I had an identity crisis.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just me. And when no one turned around, at the end, they walked me down to, this room and they were gonna do some therapy with me because that's what they normally do for people who, and I was like, I was just like literally like a stone. Like I was like, I don't even wanna talk right now. My mom's like, let's just get him home. She's crying. I'm in the car on the way back to the hotel, grab my stuff. I was just depressed, bro. But that showed that it was more about that stage than it was about my development for me. And so that really told, a big story, which was I truly didn't know the Lord yet. If those things can impact me so much, a no, right? Or expectation is just failed and it's not what I thought it would be, then how could God blow my mind?
Yeah.
He couldn't, because my mind and my expectation is here. And if he doesn't meet this specific thing, he's not my God. And so I didn't know the Lord.
Yeah.
I knew who he was. I knew he was good, but I didn't know him. And so if I didn't see good in my life, I didn't think he was there.
And then how did you kind of face that rejection? Because, you had all this time and effort and energy invested, your family's time, energy, and invested.
Right.
And so now you're facing this rejection.
Yeah.
So how do you come out of that?
How'd I come out, man? I'll tell you what, bro, I struggled with it for a long time. I would say, the next 5-6 years were spent in that rejection, in and out. I just dealt with it in different ways.
Got it.
And tried to hide it through relationships. After that, once it aired on the show, I was like famous at my school. Like everybody was like, oh, look at this guy, because I went back to school in person. And I went to Costa Mesa High School.
Okay.
And so when I was there as a new school, all of that, I was just trying to keep it low key. And then once it aired, I just seen a Twitter post, this guy goes to our school. And I was like, oh snap. The next day, bro, it was like I wasn't this kid that everyone should beat up or should make fun of, or it was the complete opposite. I was more popular than like the football guy, like more popular than the jockey.
Because they saw you on TV.
Bro, because, the TV thing. But then not just in my school, bro, I was at Disneyland. I went to the mall. I was kind of hungry for attention, to be honest. Because I didn't get any attention when I was a kid. I was just the bad attention, right? I was like made fun of and stuff like that. So the making fun of stuff stopped immediately. Like there was nobody that made fun of me ever again. It was literally awesome. But the hard part was dealing with, now you have influence.
Yeah.
But you have influence because of your gifts. And that was a trip for me, bro, because I was serving at the church at that time. I felt like whenever I was singing, because I was in the youth group at the church, like if it's not perfect, I suck. If it's not perfect, I messed up what God was trying to do. It was all about being perfect. It was all about this image now. And so everywhere I went, if I didn't get somebody who noticed me, I felt like bad now. And so it's crazy, bro. I experienced extremes on both ends. but how I dealt with it was in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I chose to see myself as better than others. I chose to see myself as, oh, I was on this show, I was famous, this is my Instagram, I was trying to like make it look more important than it is. And that's a very dangerous place, especially coming from a place of God and a foundation and a family of God, because you can think that, oh, I already know everything I need to know about God. You can't teach me anything. And that's why I stayed there, because I was so prideful after that. And pride can be both ways. And Pastor Gabe taught me this too, my mentor. He said, pride can be, you think you're better than others, right? You know it all. Or pride can be that you see yourself to a fault, where it's an insecurity. Talking about a scripture, we're talking about Saul, right? The king of Israel.
Yeah.
And Saul disobeyed the Lord, even though he went to war and he kept some of the cattle and some of the things that he was supposed to do away with.
Yeah.
And when Samuel confronted him, he said, Saul, I know you think less of yourself. And so what happens is so he was rejected by the Lord, he's no longer king. But what happened was Saul thought so less of himself that he shouldn't have been king, that he fell into rebellion and he fell into disobeying God. And that's exactly where I was. I was in a place of position, a place of power, a place of influence. And when God confronted me, I was rebellious. And I felt like I was rejected by God. And I think because of the way I was living, I was being opposed by God. And it doesn't mean the goodness of God was on my life. Like I was saying, I felt like I was blessed. I was. We're all blessed to some capacity. We have air in our lungs, right?
Yeah.
But I think that God wanted to bless me more and I wasn't letting him do it. And so I think looking back on it, how I dealt with it was in the wrong way. But coming down years later, give it about, when I turned 18, 19, was really the worst of it. Parents divorced. I found out that when I was a baby, my dad cheated on my mom with someone in the church. And I found that out at 18, 19. My trust for my family went out the window. And I always felt like the black sheep of the family. Like I never felt like accepted. And then on The Voice, rejected. And then here, rejected. And so I'm like, man, I'll just reject myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into smoking, drinking. I'm going to go try everything I can and try and get some kind of results in my life that aren't this. They split, and brother and sister went to live with mom. And, sister would go back and forth from dad's house. Dad started drinking, getting worse and worse, dating other people, stuff like that. I couldn't handle it. So what we did was I went to music school in Hollywood at MI. I went away, moved at 18, and started living in an apartment on Hollywood Boulevard. I started rapping on the Hollywood Boulevard with my little speaker and with my mic, hoping that someone would see me from some record label. Wow. No one's seen me. I made about, $80 a day, which wasn't too bad. But, I was doing everything I could, bro, to still pursue that music. And the people that I would rub shoulders with out there, they weren't necessarily bad people. They're just people that weren't committed to God.
Right.
And that lifestyle. And so some of those people I still talk to today now. But I was partying, I was drinking, bro. I was smoking weed. Bro, I was trying to get with girls, and I grew up in church. I had never done any of that stuff. So I was like, if I experienced all this stuff on The Voice, I'm going to use this influence now. And now I'm going to get people to give me things, and I'm going to try and feel better about myself because I'm so rejected. And what happened was I got to a place where I completely got in the wrong relationship, and I moved back in with my dad, and I ended up being in a place where I wanted to kill myself. And I came to a place where I was like, man, I don't even want to live anymore. I completely... I believe I'm so rejected by others that I'm rejecting myself right now. And I believe God's rejecting me too. And so I came to a place where I wanted to commit suicide. And that was when I left my dad's house and I moved out to my uncle's house in North Carolina because my mom just couldn't see me like that anymore. She's like, you got to get better or go to the Army. So I went straight with my uncle. He now runs an organization called Love Life, which helps stop abortion, which is great. So I served there. God kept me in his hands. And I was still in church and things like that, but I was a wanderer for sure. It wasn't until I met Pastor Gabriel when I moved back with my mom in California, and I needed a place to stay. My dad wouldn't let me live with him. My mom really didn't want me living with her because I was just pushing everybody away. but I still had this problem with suicide, in and out of relationships. And Pastor Gabriel reached out to me because I went to school with someone who goes to his church. And they said, you should have this guy come and speak to your kids. Now, I know what you might be thinking, man, this guy's going through all this.
Yeah.
He's going to go come speak to some teens, right? I just seen it as an opportunity. I didn't know I was going through all that, really. I was like, I know I'm going through pain and suffering, and I just don't know what it actually is that's causing it when it was really me. So Pastor Gabe met with me just to make sure I wasn't,
Venture out a little bit.
Poison the kids.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to do that, But it's very wise, so I'm glad he did that. Because when he did that, we had a 6-hour meeting at Starbucks. And that 6-hour meeting turned into 6 hours of mentorship. It was only supposed to be like 30 minutes. And I left the relationship at that time. I blocked the person. I literally realized I had unforgiveness towards my dad. As soon as I seen him, I pulled up my shirt. I said, hey, check out these tattoos, bro. What do you think? It says Son of God, all written right here. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with tattoos. He's like, wow. He's like, bro, that's some cool artwork, but did you know, bro, like I've actually casted demons out of some people and the demons came from the tattoos. And I was like, oh snap, really? Like I was like really blown away. Like I never heard that in church before. And so he started sharing that stuff with me and bro, I'm like tatted. Like I'm just trying to like blow his mind. Like I feel like I want to just throw it all out there just to see what he thought of it, kind of test him.
All your guards down, just let everything out.
Yeah, exactly. And so I start crying, bro. And I'm like, man, I don't even have a place to live. We're in Anaheim at the time. He's in San Bernardino. I'm over here in Costa Mesa with my mom. So, that's a drive. So we're there. And he's like, bro, you need a place to live, bro? Just come live with me, bro. I'm like, what? He's like, come live with me, and we can talk more about it and stuff, but you need mentorship, And I had never had mentorship. I never really probably heard that word before.
Yeah.
It was never a thing. Then my dad barely mentored me in like our music. He never really like spiritually did Bible studies with me and helped me grow in God. It was more so like a collective effort.
Right.
From the church and friends and things like that and the Christian school I went to. But, when he said that, I was like, wow, that's a good idea. Let me talk to my mom. I talked to my mom. She loved the idea. I moved in that week.
Wow.
Bro. Still working in Brea, driving to his house, going to church though, but committed as a disciple. He moved me in. I shared with him. I blocked my dad because he had hurt my feelings, stuff like that. I even wrote a song about my dad and performed it and stuff. It was horrible. But I told him about all these things. Like, bro, you got to forgive your dad for everything that he did. And you have to just release that because if you don't, it's poison to you. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll do it. Let's forgive him. I was just so yes, because I had been in church for so long. I knew it was good. Yeah. And so I was like, let me just do this. And God really blessed me for it. Gabe moved out of that house. I ended up taking it over, turning it into a men's home for aging out foster kids with the church. And then from there, I met Alexis, my wonderful wife, there at the church. Wow. And she had been on mission trips before, and we got married. I moved out of that place after a year and like some change, and I went on staff with the church right after that.
I think it's interesting in your story that as a youth, you were involved in going and ministering to people in South America, okay? And you were meeting people at their point of desperation. Yeah. And God brings it full circle and brings someone to minister to you at your point of desperation. Wow. Yeah. And to kind of see that pattern, and God never wastes anything. Wow. Yeah. Every part of our testimony, God will use it somehow for His glory, right? Yes. God works all things together for the good of those who love God and walk according to His purpose.
That's right, yeah.
And so now you come into this season where God always looks for desperation. And I think there's a time in our lives, and I think the Western church kind of misses that. And that's why we see so many miracles, signs, and wonders in other countries, is because we've lost that desperation for God in the Western church. And so at your point of desperation, God meets you again. And what does that do for your relationship with God?
Man, I mean, I'd always question, is my testimony even powerful? Because, I came from church, but then I said goodbye to God, and then I came back to God. I just kind of look like a fool. My testimony is just me being a fool, A fool returns to his vomit, the word says. But, I think the biggest thing for me is, looking at my testimony, I have to remember, it just shows God's grace even more in my life. Yeah. as someone who doesn't know God, I knew God, but I still said no to him. You know, and I think that shows his grace and forgiveness even more. And looking back on my life, bro, like, man, I think it's crazy that I did get to experience influence at a high level, even though I felt like I was going to be the last one to experience that. And I think that just shows that God's in control of the high places and he's in control of the low places.
Yeah.
And if he wants you there, he'll get you there, you know. And on the show, I actually talked about my faith. I actually talked about, like, I know God, God's helped me through this. And right after that show, what was great, and it's funny you mentioned this, is a lot of organization reached out, like National Alopecia Areata Foundation, CAP, which is Children's Alopecia Project. So it's all these alopecia project, you know, like organizations. They reached out to me to go and speak to their kids and to their people at such a young age. I seen the power of God there too, you know, and it was really cool because I had never spoken really before. So getting to operate in that too. So now full circle, you know, God bringing the restoration and walking me through all these different things. I'm seeing now how God is good and how he's using me even now in the church with my music, being brought on with worship leading and being brought on with leadership. Even, and Pastor Gabe's so cool, you know, and he really didn't want me to lead worship for a full year because he didn't want people to just see me as someone with a gift. He wanted me to have real influence on that stage, behind the scenes, before I got on the stage.
That's huge.
You know, and that was one of the biggest things for me because it's easy. I was a part of a few other churches before, and it was easy to just see me as just a walking gift.
Yeah.
You know, like speaking, singing, songwriting, all that stuff that we were mentioning before. Like, I didn't, like, say I wanted those things, you know. That was just necessarily, like, that was the Holy Spirit. Like, that's God, like, just giving me those, you know, and using me in those things. And, you know, I think that's a big responsibility.
It is.
And if people don't see it as a responsibility, they just see it as a gift, they're going to be very surface in how they lead you. So they have to see it as a responsibility so you can help you take stewardship over those things so that more people get reached.
Yeah.
You know, so the more time you spend on, you know, perfecting your craft, because you know that there's a responsibility to do that, what happens is God blesses that, and then now he brings the masses to you so that you can reach more people.
And now you've developed the character to back the gift.
For sure, man. Yes, sir. So I think it's been very helpful having the church, the Wayward Outreach, like, and then now I'm in LA, which is crazy, you know, with Pastor Gabe, and, you know, we actually have a baby on the way, me and Lex. So that's good. And Pastor Gabe and Audition have helped a lot. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, man. And, you know, I just think it's crazy. Like, God will bring certain people in your life, like we were saying earlier, to expose you, you know, to the right places and to the right relationships and to the right opportunities, so that, like you're saying, your character could be developed to reach more people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man.
Let's get into the book.
Yeah.
So now you've developed this platform and we've really heard an amazing story. So what kind of took you into wanting to write the book, and kind of tell us what it's all about?
Yeah, so I actually wrote the book, Beyond the Cover. I wrote that book in that house that I was telling you about when I was living with Pastor Gabe. When he moved out is when I was kind of putting the finishing touches on it. I didn't actually release it until like a year or so later, which was cool because I was in a better place to where I could maybe do interviews like this, looking back on something with a new perspective that sometimes you can only get when you're out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think God has taken me to a place now where I can speak from a place of victory, because there's a lot of battles I had to go through that I talk about in the book, whether it be rejection, fear, bullying, even things that I was encountering just coming to God again, you know? And so it's really my story, you know, and it's a short read, but I think it's really, you know, inspiring for people. You know, I even have a family member of mine now. My sister got married, and his little brother, her husband's little brother, his name's Asher, coolest kid ever. And I got him a copy of one of my books. And so he actually has alopecia. Wow. And he's had it since he was 7. So super young. And it's great because, you know, I think God did that for a reason. And now he's got a little piece of hope that he can have with him, you know, like there's someone else out there, like we were talking about earlier, that he can relate to. And then when you relate with somebody, you can really receive everything they have to offer.
100%.
So I'm just happy that God has put some things in my path that have ended up being an opportunity for someone to receive something from.
And what can you tell someone that is kind of going through a season of rejection and a season of setback, what can you kind of offer them from the book?
Yeah, well, I would definitely say perspective's everything. So you have to stay thankful. And if you don't stay thankful, then you're not going to see a lot of God's goodness. Because you have to remember, if we're talking to someone who's Christian right now, that, you know, God works all things together for the good of those who love him. When you love somebody, you're thankful for them.
Yeah.
So you got to be thankful to see it work out, you know, and don't try and control things that you can't control.
That's right.
You know, and you only try and do that when you worry. So you got to stay in prayer. You got to stay in community. You got to have a home church. If I had a home church, I know 100% I'd even be better off. Because why? A home church, they see the character that you have in you and they develop that character. Because accountability develops character.
That's huge.
So we have to put ourselves in situations that sometimes we don't want to put ourselves in, being vulnerable, opening up to people that maybe you never met before, but that God put in your life. And so I would say get a local church, get involved, start serving, watch God develop you into the man or woman of God that you need to be, and make sure that you stay thankful along the way. There's so many things to learn.
Fantastic. And how can we get this book? Is it available on Amazon and all those good platforms?
It is, yeah. Amazon, everything. You can find it online. Just search Beyond the Cover by Samuel Picou. But if you guys want to connect with me on Instagram too, it's Samuel C. Picou, and then you can just click the link in bio right there. You can purchase the book or hit me up. I'll send you a free copy.
What do you have going on this year? What are some good projects you're working on?
Yeah, man. So this year, you know, I'm doing a lot right now with my business. So I have a voiceover business. And so what I'll do is I'll do a lot of different audiobooks and things like that. Obviously, we got a baby on the way. So that's in September 12th, supposedly.
Fantastic.
So we'll see if it sticks to the same date. But you probably know more. Yeah. But, you know, we're excited. Baby Ezra, and middle name Samuel. So it's
Fantastic.
a boy. So yeah, man, I'm very excited. I'm definitely, this year, you know, my word is faithful. And I'm really believing, like, man, I'm already seeing it. Like, God is just revealing his faithfulness to me so much. You know, even though, and I love that scripture, when we're unfaithful, he's still faithful.
Yes.
You know, and that just shows how good he is, man. And I really believe he's showing me how to be a great father before I even have a son. And so I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being on the podcast today. Thank you for being on Speak Life.
Of course, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Speak life. Oh, 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 oh. Speak life. Oh, 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 oh. Speak life. Oh, 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 oh. Speak life. Oh, 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 oh. Some days life feels perfect. Other days it just ain't working. The good, the bad, the right, the wrong, and everything in between.